DreAllDay.com.
Now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there, even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That is the go-getter energy that moves all of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then what we do is we put all this together into one streamlined process. We create a whole philosophy and brand and lifestyle around this thing that I'm explaining to you in a minute. We have codified our whole system. You can follow that whole system, made a course out of it. Got something else coming on. I'll tell you about that later on when it's ready. We got a hardcover book, Open Enrollment University, and you listen to the daily masterclass. All of this under the same umbrella that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today's topic, we are on volume 4 of what we have planned, of 7 volumes of me answering these questions from Prairie High School's Entrepreneurship class. So you already know what the deal is. Let's get right into it. We're on question number 22 now. We answered a lot of questions so far. Question 22, what parts of your job do you find most challenging and most easy? So this is similar to a question that I just answered back in question number 17. What I find most challenging and most easy, the most challenging part of the job is, again, just figuring out how do we translate the value and the philosophy and all these ideas that we have, and we translate that into the registers ringing, translate that into money. Because if you are running a business, the business must make money. That is the objective of the business. So that's the most challenging part. The easiest part is that it's all based on me being myself and sharing the things that I would be saying to somebody if we were just talking one-on-one. But instead, with the internet and the power of these platforms, I can reach thousands, millions of people by saying something one time. So that's the easiest, I guess what we call the easiest part of it, because this is a conversation I'll be having anyway, even if I was just talking to one person or just talking to a classroom of 30 people. But instead we get to talk to millions. Question number 23 is, how do you define success? The way I define success, the practical definition that we talk about in my book, The Mental Workbook, is that you have a goal and you are going after it. If you have a worthy ideal and you are in pursuit of that ideal, you are a successful individual. At the moment that you are not pursuing an ideal, and I don't mean like going to sleep, but I mean in your life, you're not going after anything, you're kind of just stagnant and just drifting, going wherever the wind blows, then you are unsuccessful. You are a failure, you're a loser if you don't have anything that you're going after. That's the practical definition of success. But another way of looking at success, and we just talked about this not too long ago here on this show when my girlfriend Anna was talking about this, when we were just discussing, she and I were having a conversation about success. And one of the things that she said was that your success can also be based on how you see yourself. And I think an earlier question was asked about this exact thing. And somebody could have all the outward trappings of success. They could have the money, the attention, they could have what looks like a great job, a great family, they got a nice car, they got a bunch of followers on the internet, all the things that many of us pursue as success. But if they're not happy with themselves, they're not successful. So in that sense, success is defined just by the way you look at yourself, because none of us can read another person's mind and know if they're happy or they're not happy. We can only see what we see on the outside. And a lot of times it appears, and there was a book I was just reading called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, and he talks about that a lot of people do things related to money based on how they look to everyone else, meaning get a nice car, get themselves a big house, live a certain lifestyle that costs a certain amount, because they know that everyone else is going to see that, because we can only judge people off what we can see. They're going to judge that as you are a successful individual. And a lot of people do things based on what they think everybody else is going to think, not on what they actually want for themselves. But again, we don't know what another person wants for themselves. We can only see what we think. We can only see what other people have. So that second definition of success is just, how do you feel when you look in the mirror about yourself? How do you judge yourself? What is your self-conversation? And I think that matters a lot. Question 24. Again, we're answering questions from the Prairie High Entrepreneurship class. Number 24, do you think that if you had been able to actually play basketball your senior year, I'm assuming they're asking about high school or college, so let's see, would you still be an entrepreneur today? So they didn't say whether they're talking high school or college. So those of you know the background. In high school, I did make the basketball team my senior year, but I didn't play. I pretty much sat on the bench. But then my senior year of college, I wasn't on the team at all because a coaching change had come in and I got kind of caught in that shuffle. That's a whole story that you can read about in my book, Work on Your Game, and also in my first book, Buy a Game, that you can download for free if you go to workonmygame.com/buyagame, BUYAGAME. But the answer, either way, it doesn't matter. Let's just assume they're talking college. if I had been able to play on the team that year, would I still be an entrepreneur today? I mean, I could have played on the team that year if I wanted to. I actually spoke to the coach and we had a conversation about me possibly coming back, but I decided that I didn't want to. And the question is, would I still be an entrepreneur today? Yes, because not playing on the basketball team my senior year didn't really have an effect on, honestly, it didn't really have an effect on anything. And this is something that I've told the overseas basketball audience, which is not, there's a different kind of conversations that I have with the players who want to play overseas as to what I tell you all in the work on your game audience. My focus is here to work on your game, but I still give content to those people because there's nobody out there really putting out useful info about playing overseas who actually can keep it real and explain things in a good way. But I tell them all the time that I had teammates and people that I know who played at the same level that I played at in college, and they played on the team and they played all their years and all of that, and they had great stats. I didn't have great stats in college, but they had great stats. Guys who averaged 20 points, 10 rebounds, 25 points a game, playing Division III college basketball, but then they weren't able to get any opportunities to play overseas despite the fact that they had these great stats playing at the level that I had played at, which told me something. It told me that no matter what you did at the level that we were playing college basketball, it had no effect on your professional basketball prospects. So I knew coming out of college that it didn't even matter what I had done in college or didn't do in college, because the pro basketball teams didn't respect the level that we were playing at. For me to get a gig playing overseas, I was going to have to go prove myself as if I hadn't played college basketball at all either way. So when I went to that first exposure camp, those 2 days in Orlando, when I was able to do well, get a great scouting report and get the footage from that was what made my career happen. All the stuff that had happened in college didn't really matter to the overseas basketball teams, because even if I had been averaging 25, and I know guys who did average 25 after me, they weren't able to get a look. So obviously that 25 didn't matter that much. Or if somebody averaged 2 points a game, it didn't matter that much if you can go to that exposure camp and prove yourself. So that didn't really have an effect on my entrepreneurial ambitions, because again, I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki early in college, maybe my freshman, sophomore year in college. When I read that book, that told me, oh, this is what you can do to become an entrepreneur. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but when Robert Kiyosaki explained the concept of not working for money, not trading your time for money, rather, and how there are people who make money, quote unquote, in their sleep, and literally in their sleep, that's what I knew I wanted to do. Now, I didn't have, and what Robert Kiyosaki's focus really was on was the real estate industry. I wasn't really thinking about going into real estate. I didn't really know anything about real estate, but I knew I wanted to do something where I could create something one time and then get paid for it over and over and over again. And the idea that really, the experience rather, that really planted that in my head was when I was in college, a couple things. Number one, actually, it was one main thing. It was my experience in network marketing. Someone had introduced me to network marketing, a random dude that I didn't even know. He put up a sign on the bulletin board like, hey, make extra money on the side if you're a college student, want to make some money. Of course, I was a college student, wanted to make some money. So I went to the little meeting that he had. He didn't even go to school on our campus. So I have no idea what he was doing on our campus at that time in the middle of Pennsylvania, Altoona. But he had this little meeting and only a handful of people came, and he introduced the concept of network marketing. And I never even seen that dude again. But then I was home in Philadelphia, and this is another example of, it's not your first level contacts that lead to opportunities, it's the second level and third level. I'm home in Philadelphia in the summertime from college, right? And I'm upstairs in my bedroom in my parents' house. And my mom is downstairs, and there's somebody downstairs talking to my mom in the living room. I can hear the voices of them talking, but I didn't know who it was talking. I didn't care. I wasn't trying to get involved in the conversation. But I'm out in the hallway, and I'm eavesdropping at this point. So then I started caring. I'm like, let me see what they're talking about, whoever this is. And a woman talks, and she said the name of the same network marketing company that this random dude in Altoona had introduced me to. So when I heard her say that name, I said, what? Wait, I went downstairs. And I went downstairs, and the woman, this is who the woman was. Her name was Dewana. And Dewana, my mom used to run her own childcare business. And Dewana was the mother of one of the kids that my mom used to watch. Or her child was like, 2 years old. And my mom used to watch this child, and I used to help my mom with her business when she was running the business. And by the time and this is when I was 10, 11 years old. Now, at this point, I'm like 21. So when I go downstairs, the woman is like, oh my God, because Dewana, she hadn't seen me since I was like 10 years old. At this point, I'm 21. I'm like an adult. And she was like, wow, I hadn't seen you in so long. And then I told her why I had come downstairs. I said, I heard you mention the name of that network marketing company. She said, yes, you heard of it? And I said, yeah, this dude introduced me, but I never heard from him again. But I'm interested. Can you put me on? And this is the funny part. She came to my mom. She came to the house to try to sell my mom on the network marketing. My mom did not get in. She did not buy the product, but I'm the one who got in, and she wasn't even there to talk to me. She didn't even know I was there. So there's another serendipitous situation. And so anyway, I started going to the meetings with Duana, and I did not stay in the company or didn't do it. I don't do network marketing. I did an episode actually where I talked about network marketing. That was episode number 1503, the business and personal growth benefits of network marketing. And that's where I explain what I'm about to explain right now. When I started going to the meetings, they explained the concept, just these business concepts that no one had ever explained to me in my life. And they were explaining the concepts of entrepreneurship and the concepts of passive income, that even though I didn't stay in network marketing, and network marketing was not my ticket to do that, the concepts that they were explaining, the principles made a ton of sense. And the other thing that they explained was the concept of personal development. So I could, even though some people who are listening to this, I'm sure many of you have had experiences with network marketing, whether it was positive, negative, whatever you think about it, I could never say anything negative in general about the concept of network marketing from my personal experience, because what I got from it was the personal development and understanding the business principles that I didn't even learn. I went to college and got a business degree, and they didn't teach me what I learned in like a month of going to network marketing meetings, when they explained the concept of do some work one time and get paid for it over and over again. These days I have products, I have courses, I have books, I have memberships where I don't have to deliver the work over and over again. The only place, as far as something I directly charge for, where I have to do the work to get the money is in one-on-one coaching. But other than that, everything else is something where I can do the work once. I can write a book, and that book can sell for years, and I make money every time somebody buys a book, but I don't have to go write the book for each individual person who buys it. So I was able to translate the concepts that they were talking about, and they were talking about, hey, you sell this product, whatever network marketing product is, and then you get paid over and over, and you bring other people into the business and they get paid, you get paid. These days, the way that many people do this outside network marketing is what we would call affiliate marketing. Someone else has the product, you sell their product, and you get a cut of that sale just because you introduced the product to that other person, and you didn't do anything. You didn't create anything. All you did was get them to use your link, and you got a cut of it. And network marketing it's designed in the same vein. Don't get me to try to explain network marketing. It's out of my waters to explain it. But that's the whole. I'm telling you all of that. And we're answering this question: would I still be an entrepreneur? The answer is yes, because when I started going to those network marketing events, this is why I'm still in college, still playing basketball on the basketball team. I already had it in my mind, okay, I'm going to play basketball when I get out of college. That's the thing I'm going to do, because we know athlete career windows are very short, and you got to do it while you're young enough to still do it. So I knew I was going to do that first. And then after basketball, I'm going to get into this entrepreneurship thing. So I already had it planned out in my mind what I was going to do. But at the same time, you have to understand, I graduated college in 2004. In 2004, the phrase social media did not exist. In 2004, Facebook did not exist. Neither did YouTube, neither did Twitter or Instagram or what other apps we got out there. I think podcasting did exist, but it was definitely not even as close to ubiquitous as it is nowadays, of course. So all of these things that we're using these days, smartphones didn't even exist in 2004. So I want you all to understand, even though I had the idea that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, none of the platforms that I use for entrepreneurship nowadays, none of them existed, but I was always seeking because of that seed that got planted in my mind by Robert Kiyosaki and Duana and the network marketing experience. So that is the answer to question 24. Would I still be an entrepreneur? Absolutely, hell yes. And the other reason why I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur is because I've heard people say, sometimes you ask somebody what do they want in life, and it's hard sometimes for us to answer. It's hard for us to say what we want because there's so many things we could be going after. But people say sometimes, just if someone has a hard time of telling you what they want, ask them what they don't want. What are the things that you don't like? What are the things you absolutely do not want in a relationship? What are some things you don't want in a job? What are some things you absolutely hate about your current status in life? Usually everyone can answer those very clearly. So another reason I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur is because the adults that I grew up around, and this is not to knock them or to shit on them, but the adults I grew up around, they all worked regular jobs, quote unquote regular jobs. And the thing about it is, and I'm sure there are people out there who work regular jobs who love what they do for a living. I know people who work at companies. They are not entrepreneurs. They work at a company. They get a paycheck, and they love what they do. They enjoy their work. They're happy. They show up with a smile on their face every single day. But the adults that I was around, they weren't like that. They had jobs, and they talked about their work as if it was a necessary evil. They would say things like, I have to go to work. They didn't say I get to go to work. They didn't say I'm excited to go to work. They didn't come home and rave about what happened at work. Going to work was just like something that you just had to go through. It's kind of like an athlete. You work out and then you got to get in the ice bath. Like, you have to get in the ice bath. You don't enjoy it, but you understand it's a necessary evil of the game that you're in. And that's the way that the adults around me seemed to look at their jobs. Now, I never asked them directly. I just noticed, I observed their energy when they would talk about their work. They would, talk about my mom would get on the phone almost every day and talk to her friends, and she would complain about her coworkers. Not even complain. She would just, you know how women just like to talk to each other. So she would get on the phone with whoever she was talking to. I don't know who she was talking to. And she would just be talking about stuff that was going on at work and how this woman did this and this woman did that. And every day, she did it. Every single day she did this. And it was never like raving about how great the job was. She was just talking about how she didn't like certain people at her job. And this was every day. And I'm like, all right, well, this is what the adults are doing, and this is what I'm supposed to grow up to do. I'm going to school to get a degree so I could do what they're doing, or at least what it sounds like they're doing. I didn't see them at work, but I heard how they talked about it. And my dad, he didn't really talk about his job like that, but he didn't rave about it either. So it seemed like he went like, I got to go to work so I can get the money and take care of my family, which is all good. And I 100% respect that. But damn, I don't want to spend half of my waking life doing something that I'm not even happy about doing. So I was clear that I didn't want to work a regular job because the examples that I saw of people who did, they were not happy. They didn't seem excited about their regular jobs. Now, had I been around people who were excited about their regular jobs, maybe my whole perspective would have been completely different. But my perspective is my perspective because my experience is my experience. So it's kind of funny sometimes just the way that things turn out, but that's the way it turned out. Moving on to question number 25. I'm answering questions from Prairie High School's entrepreneurship class. Question is, Dre, even though you weren't able to play your senior year, how did basketball affect you and your entrepreneurial quest? I think that I answered a good amount of that in the previous question, but how did basketball affect it? It was, number one, just the fact that I was able to travel the world and see different things. My mind was much more open, I think, than someone who doesn't have that experience of traveling. Number two, to get into professional basketball, if you have listened to the way that I've answered these questions and the background that I come from, if you read anything that I've written about myself and my background, especially in sports, I didn't have like a red carpet laid out for me to make it in basketball. In order for me to get on in professional basketball, it was not just a talent thing for me. I had to go somewhere and I had to play. Even when I went to that exposure camp and I did my thing, I didn't get offered a contract in Orlando when I was at that exposure camp. All I got from Orlando was the game film from the games I played in, and I got a scouting report that said, hey, this guy's a pretty good player. I had to take that game film and scouting report, that collateral, and I had to leverage that in getting an agent to sign me in order so they would represent me and they could connect me to the teams who were looking for players. In other words, I had to sell myself. I had to sell myself just to get into professional basketball. And there are several times, if you read my book, Work on Your Game, and also my book, The Overseas Basketball Blueprint, any of you who wants to play overseas, you can get that for free at balloverseas.com. Several times I had to sell myself just to get an opportunity to sell myself. And this is something that I've talked about earlier, and I'll talk about this forever. Sometimes in life, you're not going to get an opportunity just because you're good, just because you practice, just because you work hard, just because you believe in yourself, because you want it, you quote unquote deserve it. You have to sell yourself. And if you're not able or willing to sell yourself, you will not get the opportunity. I'm the type of person who I've always been big on selling myself. I know how to sell myself. I actually think I'm pretty damn good at selling myself. And I actually went and made a course on selling yourself. And if you couldn't guess the name of it, it's called Sell Yourself. You can get that inside of Work on Your Game University at workonyourgameuniversity.com. And where I got that idea, and this is all tying into this question of how did basketball affect my entrepreneurial quest. When I was maybe about 19, this is my freshman year of college, so 18, 19 years old. I was working at the mall, Plymouth Meeting Mall outside of Philadelphia. Shout out to all my people in Philly and outside of Philly. At this mall, at first I was working at McDonald's. My senior year of high school, I worked at McDonald's, and that bled into the beginning of my freshman year of college. Because my freshman year of college, I was at Penn State Abington, which is right outside of Philadelphia. They don't even have dorms or nothing. So I was living at home, going to college on the basketball team. And I would work at McDonald's like on the weekends and stuff. So I stopped working at McDonald's and I started working at the hat store in the mall. Now, how I got the job at the hat store, I sold myself. Here's how I got the job at the hat store. Now, this is important for especially the young people, the high schoolers, to know how I got this job. Now, y'all know what the mall looks like. All right, it's a food court. I worked at McDonald's. Now, when I would be on break, I would just walk around the mall and go in stores that I liked. Now, I'm an 18-year-old kid, around the same age that a lot of y'all are. The high schoolers asking these questions, that is. What stores you go into the mall? I went into the Foot Locker, stores that had jerseys. This is back when we used to wear jerseys. I don't know if y'all wear jerseys these days. Hat stores, because I always like hats, if you can't tell. And there was this hat store, Hat World. It's like Lids, Hat World. These stores, all they do is just a little tiny store. All they sell is hats. So I would go in there, and it wouldn't be any other customers in the store. And it's not a big store, and there's only one person working there, and it was this woman, a black woman. She was about my mom's age. And I would go in and I'll say, hey, how are you? She'd say, hey, how you doing? I was always polite to her, always respectful. I would chat her up, ask her a couple questions. And she saw I had my McDonald's uniform on. So she saw, obviously, that I worked in the mall. I had a job already. And I would just chat her up and just ask her about hats. She would ask me some questions, and I would just talk her up. And again, she was around my mom's age, and I knew how to speak to people respectfully, especially females. And she kind of grew to like me. She just took a liking to me because I would always come in there and just say, what's up? And again, she had a certain level of trust for me because she saw, all right, this dude got a McDonald's uniform on. So he has a job. He works in a mall. So there's some type of familiarity. And he was able to get that job. So he obviously understands, whatever you need in an employee. I wasn't some random customer just walking in, talking to her off the street. So I would come in just every time I was on break, I would just come in and talk to her. And this would be just a couple times a week. Because mind you, I'm a full-time college student. I'm on a basketball team. So I'm only working 2-3 days a week. And I would just chat her up every now and then. And then I started asking her, probably about the third or fourth time I came in there, I was like, yo, because I would always see her in there by herself. And I would say, yo, can I get a job here? I just started asking her, yo, can I work here? And she was like, maybe. And again, I was a warm contact by this point. She didn't even know. I don't even think she knew my name. But she knew me, like this dude, this tall kid who keeps coming in here from McDonald's. He's about the same age as my son. I later found out she had a son who was the same age as me. So this is why she took a liking to me, but I kept coming in, just slowly just chatting her up, and I started asking her for a job. And at first she said, no, I can't hire anybody right now because it wasn't hardly anything happening in the store. She was like, it's me these days. And then the other days, it was a dude named Jay, a white guy. He was like the assistant manager. So if she wasn't at work, he was at work. And it was just them two. She was like, yeah, I am going to need an employee soon. I just kept asking her, not in an incessant way, just every time I came in, like, yo, I'm trying to get that job. Look, I'll quit McDonald's. And she already knew I'm a guy who can get a job. So I obviously got some level of common sense, and I know how to handle myself at a job. So she said, no, when I'm ready to hire somebody, maybe the fifth or sixth time, when I'm ready to hire somebody, I'm going to think of you. And I just kept coming in once a week, just saying what's up to her, how you doing. Eventually, she hired me. So, and I still didn't even get to what I got from her out of the story. So when I finally got the job, I would be in there. Now, I'm a regular employee. I'm not a manager. So I would always, if I was at work, one of the other people was there, either her or Jay. I don't even remember the woman's name. But her or Jay would be there working. And whenever I was in there with her, I would just talk to her and I would just ask her question after question. One day she described me as a brain picker. She said, Dre, you're a brain picker. All you do is just ask question after question. And that's anybody who knows me knows that that's the type of person that I am. And there's a reason why I'm able to create all this content. It's not because I'm just this evil genius sitting in the basement coming up with all these great ideas. It's because I pick people's brains. I ask questions and I learn from people by asking the right questions and then listening. So I would talk to her, and I found out that she had a long career in retail management. Like the whole time that she had been in the working world for 20 years, she had always been in retail management. Now, why the hell did I care about retail management? Because I didn't read Rich Dad Poor Dad yet at this point. But at the same time, I know I want to play professional basketball. So why do I care about somebody who's always been a manager in retail stores at malls and stuff like that? Here's why. Because as a kid growing up, ages 15, 16, 17, me and my friends, I don't know how it is these days with you all, because with the internet is way different. But back then when we didn't have the internet, every week our parents around age 15, 16, in our generation, our parents would start telling us, yo, you need to go get a job. You need to go get yourself a weekend job. And they knew it wasn't going to be a lot of money, but no, you want a little bit of money to go to the mall. You want some money to go to the movies. You want to take a girl out. You want to go to some party. You want to go to the club and it costs $20 and you ain't got no money. Listen, you go get yourself a little job on the weekend. You might get your little check of $150, $200 every 2 weeks, and there's your spending money. All right, I'll give you money for food, clothing, shelter. But other than that, any extra money, that's how my parents were. Anything other than food, clothing, shelter, you need to pay for it yourself. Go get yourself a job. So I had my first job at 15. Now, here's the thing. At that time, all kids were like this, at least in the environment that I come from. All the kids were like this. We're all trying to get a job somewhere. So we would go to the mall. We would have an ink pen with us because this is no smartphones, no internet. Well, the internet existed, but we didn't all have it. So we bring an ink pen. We would go in a store like Foot Locker, or there used to be this music store called Sam Goody, or anywhere we wanted to work. And we would ask for an application. They would hand us a piece of paper. And you high schoolers probably think this is some ancient shit that I'm talking, some Stone Age shit that I'm talking about right here. But this is how it was. They would hand us a piece of paper, and we would take the paper, and we had to write out our application. Write your name, where you from, write your work history, all this stuff on the application with our little ink pen. We would go to the food court, fill out the application in the food court, walk back to the Foot Locker, and hand in our application and hope that they called us. They never called us. So we would never get these jobs, but we would try over and over again. I was able to get some jobs, but I got not called back more times than I did get called back. So anyway, when I am working at Hat World and I meet this woman and she's had all these retail management jobs, I would just ask her, where'd you work before this? Or where'd you work before that? And she would tell me how she was a manager at this place and that place and that place. And to us, again, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, we're like, the manager makes more money than the regular workers. Like, they really get money. They get all these hours. They get extra hours to work. And damn, they make good money. And this was our perspective at this time. So I wanted to know how she was able to get all these jobs. So I started asking her, how did you get hired at Sears? How did you get hired at Macy's? How did you get hired to run Old Navy as a manager? How did you get hired to be a manager at Finish Line? How did you get all these jobs? How do you keep getting hired at all these jobs? Because she got, not only did she score the interview, she was getting hired. So I wanted to know how she was able to do this. I'm just an inquisitive person. And every time she would tell me the story how she got hired, she always kept using this phrase. She would say, Dre, I would sell myself. I would get into the interview, I sold myself, and they hired me. And I asked her about this job. So I got into the interview, I sold myself, and they hired me. And she was the first person I ever heard use that phrase, sell myself. And I never asked her to explain what it meant because it's kind of self-explanatory. And I always kept that in the back of my mind, sell yourself. So when I got out of college and I'm trying to get on playing overseas, I knew what I had to do. Because I went to that exposure camp. Mind you, at an exposure camp, you got 200 guys who all are trying to play professional basketball. All 200 of those players are not getting signed to contracts. It's not going to happen. Only a few are going to get signed. I was like, all right, how am I going to make myself stand out amongst all these players? Now, yeah, I think I'm better than all of them, but every player in here thinks they're the best player in the gym. So obviously that's not the key. It's not the key to think you're the best player in the gym. And it's not even necessarily the key to prove you're the best player, because who's the judge as to who's better than who? I mean, look at, people ask who's better, LeBron or Michael Jordan. You could argue all day. Nobody's the definitive judge on who's better than who. So you need something better than just thinking you're better, or even saying that you're better, or even quote unquote proving that you're better. I said, I got to sell myself. I just needed something to sell myself with. I didn't have anything to sell myself with. I needed collateral. So when I got that exposure camp video and I got the scouting report, now I had something to sell myself with. So when I got that, that's when I started selling myself. And that's when that worked and I got on overseas, I said, I can sell myself to do anything. Anything that I'm actually good at, that I actually want to do, I can sell myself to do anything. So that's really what planted the seeds for me entrepreneurially. And then, mind you, this is 2005 when I got on overseas. So then YouTube comes out and I'm posting these videos and people are just taking a liking to me, don't even know who I am, start selling myself. Then at this time, actually before all the social medias that we know now, again, any of y'all who's 30 or over, y'all remember MySpace. MySpace was the website. So we were on MySpace and I'd be selling myself on MySpace. We used to talk to girls on MySpace. Before the Instagram DMs, it was MySpace. And again, those of y'all old enough know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't act like I'm the only one. So then it was MySpace. Then all the social medias that we know now. Twitter came out, Facebook came out. Then we got all these other platforms. And I realized that people were buying into me as a person. It wasn't that they were looking for this name brand guy, because I wasn't a name brand guy. I made my name brand by selling myself through these platforms and through the content that I was sharing. So how did basketball affect my entrepreneurial quest? I hope that answers your question, probably more than you were expecting. Question number 26. Today we are answering more questions from Prairie High School entrepreneurship class. Number 26, was it hard to transition into a different career path? No, it wasn't, because many students asked a different version of this exact same question. So I think that's an insightful thing for any of you adults out there who's maybe wondering about this. But it's insightful to me that I've got asked this question probably about 3 times in 3 different ways. It wasn't difficult for me simply because I was kind of already on this path, as I've already explained. I was already creating content while I was still playing overseas. So when it was time for me to completely stop playing overseas, I already had my whole brand in place. I already had, hey, this is what I'm about. Hey, this is what I'm doing. I was already established. I already had a following. So I wasn't this brand new rookie coming in at 0 zeros all across the board on every platform. I already had 100,000 subscribers on YouTube. I already had an audience. I had already created and sold thousands of products. I already had an email list with thousands of names on it. So I already had a lot of things in place that when people first start out, they realize that they need to do all these things. I had already done them while I was still in my previous career. So I was basically doing 2 careers at the same time from 2005 on. And it was in 2015, I just dropped one of them, basketball, and I started doing the other one full time. So here we are. So was it hard to transition? Not for me, simply because there never was a transition, honestly. I just stopped doing one and I just did more of the other one. But there were challenges along the way. I had to learn some things. I still had to learn the game of entrepreneurship. And I thought I was technically an entrepreneur starting in 2009. But I didn't really become a real entrepreneur. Honestly, I wouldn't say until 2020 when I really started putting some real structure into my business. Before that, what I was a product creator and a salesperson. And that's how I was able to make money. But I didn't really become a serious CEO and business owner until we really had some structure and organization in our business, which didn't really happen until 2020. So that's my answer to the transitioning question. Question number 27, this is the last one for today. Answering questions from the Prairie High School entrepreneurship class. Number 27, what would you consider your biggest accomplishment so far? Man, that's a great question. And it's a tough one because people ask me this all the time and I don't have any one specific answer that I would say is my greatest accomplishment. I would say, just thinking off the top of my head, and I'm going to cheat and give you more than one answer, is first of all, being able to make it happen and play professional basketball when so few players get a chance to, especially from the background that I came from, that's one thing. Being able to get my book, Work on Your Game, getting that done through a traditional publisher when I wasn't even looking for a publishing deal. When most people go looking for publishing deals and they try for years and can't get one, I was able to get one and wasn't even looking for it. And to be able to get my whole philosophy into one book, and I love the way that book came out. So I would consider that another one. Another is the fact that I was able to take advantage of the opportunity of all these platforms being available at the exact time that I was coming of age as an adult and making something out of nothing. I took Dre all day, Work on Your Game, all of this stuff was an idea in my head, and I turned it into something tangible that has had a real effect on people that I otherwise never would have had a chance to reach. So I would say we'll just go with those 3 as the biggest accomplishments so far. But I don't think I have achieved my biggest accomplishment. Whatever my biggest accomplishment is going to be, let's say when I'm 80 years old and I write another book about my whole life, the biggest accomplishment is going to make people know who I am at that point has not occurred yet. I don't know what it's going to be, but I don't think anything I've done so far is that. The one big thing, the big avalanche thing has not occurred yet, but it's going to occur, but it hasn't happened yet. So I'm going to leave the rest of that question as a blank slate because we haven't gotten there yet. So that's all we're going to answer for today. Tomorrow we're going to volume 5. Again, thank you to the students at Prairie High for asking these very good questions. And it's a good chance for me to just kind of give these answers that I think other people would have as well. But we got it from the high school students, the youth, leading the way. So tomorrow we'll get into more of these, and y'all have heard probably that now. You can send me a text. So anybody got a question, comment, concern about anything you've heard on this show or anything you want to ask about that maybe I haven't talked about, maybe you got a show topic suggestion. I doubt that you have one I haven't done already, but you can text me and let's find out. The number is 305-384-6894. Again, that's 305-384-6894. Yes, that is my real number. Yes, it is me. Yes, I will respond. If you don't believe me, text it and see. I will respond. I will prove to you that is me. So send me a text if you got a question, comment, concern about anything, and definitely make sure you have left a review on the show. I appreciate it. Work on your game. Dre all day.